Hello, everyone, and welcome to Eden, Avalon, and the Holy Grail. I'm your host, Elizabeth Dillon-Bercovici, and I'm over the moon excited to be here today with Rachel Goodwin. Oh my God, Rachel, welcome. I'm so elated to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm really happy to be here too.
So for those of you who are new to Rachel, let me just introduce her quickly. So Rachel Goodwin is an author, priestess, master healer, and spiritual teacher who works with and channels Sarah, daughter of the Magdalene and Yeshua, and the lineage of the Blue Rose. Rachel brings through initiations and energy transmissions to empower us to co-create the new earth and be all that we are. She also passes on the wisdom teachings of Sarah and the Blue Rose. Oh my God. So that's quite a resume. Channeling the daughter of Yeshua and the Magdalene. Oh my God. So I know that we're going to tie this in, to Avalon and the Holy Grail. And also one of the reasons why I was so excited to connect with Sarah to connect with Rachel, is because I at first, I didn't really think of the Holy Grail as the daughter of Jesus Christ and Mary Magdalene. I knew that some people saw that as a very real possibility, but I was someone who always studied the Grail literature, like the Celtic lore, and there was a series of synchronicities that led me to going to Rachel, and I knew that Spirit had led me to get to her to receive whatever beautiful message is going to come through today. This was something that was divinely orchestrated. I just want you, the audience, to know just how special this moment is for me, and hopefully for all of you as well. But anyway, that's just a little bit about me. So right now, Rachel, I'd love to hear more about, how you first connected with Sarah, and what was that journey? What was that experience like?
Well, it was very much a surprise to me when Sarah came along. She wasn't somebody that I knew anything about. And it was quite a long time ago now. It's 2006. So I've been working with her for quite a few years. But if I just go back a little bit before that, I mean, I had a very kind of normal upbringing. I'm British. You can probably tell that from my accent. And at some point, I decided to go and train as a psychiatric nurse. I went and did that. And while I was doing my training, my mum very sadly got ill with cancer and she passed. And that was really a huge initiation for me. But before she died, she started seeing a healer. And she was very advanced in cancer when they discovered that she was ill. And she went to see this healer, and he took away so much of her pain. He made her last year of life so much better. It was, but I was very skeptical. I was like, who's this person seeing my mum? And so I got on a train from London down to the Kent coast where my family home is, and went to meet this guy, and his name was Colin. It was such a noble name. And he was in his, I don't know, he's probably about my age now. He was in his 50s, and he had this Marks and Spencer's cardigan on, which is just very ordinary looking person. And he met me at the door and he said, "Oh, hello, my name's Colin." And I was like, oh, okay. This doesn't seem like some big scam or something. Anyway, he told my mum that I was a healer. And so she told me, and I was like, yeah, right, okay. And she gave me this book to read about healing. And she used to give me books because we come from a very, traumatized family. There's a lot of ancestral trauma in our family. And she used to give me Louise Hayes and Susan Jeffers. And, when I was 16, 17, 8, and I would read them all. Anyway, she gave me this book on healing, and I was like, it just stayed under the bed and got dusty. So I gave it back to her. And I remember the look of disappointment on her face. And then, yeah, she died when I was 26 in 1996. And then it was such a huge initiation for me. I mean, I had always kind of felt and seen spirit, but completely denied it and just been scared to death of it. So I'd shut it all away. But then my mum died, and I loved my mum so much, I couldn't deny her presence. She was still there. I was still feeling her. And she had this book of Tibetan Book of Living and Dying. And I read out all the rites in it for her. And I could feel it was doing stuff, you know. And I was like, oh my God, the world's not the place I thought
You
it
thought
was,
it was. Yes,
you know?
absolutely.
And then after a couple of years, I still kept getting this feeling, and it got more and more intense, like learn healing, learn healing. It was like my mum was kind of sitting on my shoulder, like nagging at me regularly. And in the end, I went and got a book on healing, read some exercises, found out I could just do it. And I was like, oh, and it just never stopped. It just never stopped. So at some point, I just got so interested. I was reading everything and going and trying different courses and finding people who were really great to do training with. And then at one point, the voice came back going, learn channeling, learn channeling. And I was like, I mean, that's not me, you know, that's not, I'm not a channel, you know, I'm not that sort of person. And but I did find a training after a couple of years. And then I did that. And I just found out I could just do it, basically. So like all the things I do, they've all been learned in past lifetimes. I can't really take any credit for it in this lifetime. Because
My
like,
past life self gets the credit. This version, not so.
yeah, I just kind of could just do it all. And then I got a prompt to go to Hawaii. And I went to Hawaii. And when I came back, I was teaching, because I've connected with all these amazing earth energies out there. Because I also found somewhere along on my spiritual journey that I was an earth healer, and that I was here to work with earth energies, and I can like read landscapes and energies and see what needs doing where. And then when I came back, I taught a, I don't know, 6-week course or something, connecting with these special energies I'd connected with. This is on the Big Island of Hawaii. And then for the very, very...
Oh, yeah, I was going to say, just I think for the audience who might be curious, I saw on your website that you worked with, I might pronounce this wrong, Pele? Is it Pele?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, because when
share a little bit, because I'm sure the audience is probably curious about this work that you did in Hawaii. It sounds really amazing.
Well, Pele, she's the Hawaiian goddess of the volcanoes, and she was brought out there when the first Hawaiians traveled there from Polynesia. And there's a whole thing. I won't go into it because I won't stop. But she is just so fiery and so strong, and she's a very divine, feminine sort of empowerment woman. And she's really was like the foundation of all of my work. And then so when I came back, I was like connecting to these different places. And the last one we did, it was a place called Pu'uhonua Ohonaunau, which is a place of sanctuary with this just incredible love energy. And each week I would open up and do a channeling, and normally it would be like somebody Hawaiian, and it was Sarah. And so the words came into my head, something like, I am Sarah, the daughter of Mary Magdalene. And I was like, who? I had seen her mentioned in another channeling that somebody else had done, but you know, it wasn't something I was interested in or believed in or anything. But then I thought, well, I could feel the energy was good. And, you know, with channeling, if you don't speak the first words, the rest of it doesn't come out. And I was sort of, people were sitting there waiting for me to say something. So I carried on with the rest of the channeling. And I mean, the core of it was that love is the key, basically, was what she said. And then she never left.
I love that. That's so beautiful. No,
Yeah.
that idea of love is the key. I'd love to talk more about that, because as I've been like kind of really deepening in the Eden energies, that's really what, you know, has really come through, especially like even in the kind of the mythic sense, it was the original love that God had for creation. And I think that, you know, I think that when we say the word like, oh, God is love and love is all around us, like, I think that like there's a certain kind of disconnect that, people hear it so often that they're like, "Yeah, yeah." But I feel like part of my intention for this event is for people to experience that on a whole other level, so they really understand that as the truth of their being and the truth of reality. So I'm wondering actually if there's anything that you can say to really help almost like break through, like I think people have walls up when we say things like, God is love, that's the truth, like, that's the truth of your being. I feel like I'm wondering how we can get people to truly experience that. Not just intellectually, but truly know it.
Yeah, well, I think, because like, so one of my jobs, as I see it, is to talk about stuff and, help people understand with their like cognitive minds
Mm.
and like learn things. And then the other part of my job is to connect people up to energies. And that's what I do. And that's what Sarah does as well. Like, I'm a bridge for people. And, I do meditations and journey works and channelings, but those things are actually about electromagnetically projecting out that energy, and then people can feel it, because it's not something you can understand with your cognitive mind, and that's where the disconnect comes in. It's like God is love. Well, our logical brains can't possibly understand that. It's a felt experience that we have to have.
Beautiful. So actually, I have so many questions for you, but I feel like for me, the first one that's really on my heart is, what is the Holy Grail to you? And I know that you work with Sarah, so I'm sure you have a very unique answer.
Yeah, and also, Sarah has her kind of like version of it, because she has her teachings. But, I've also looked into the Grail because, like, my husband, he's a Jungian psychoanalyst as well as a university researcher. And there's a lot of stuff that the Jungians have written
Yeah.
on their Holy Grail. And because I always knew she was the Holy Grail, again, sort of as a felt experience rather than, and this means I'm always interested to look at like other mythologies and legends, because there's so much to be found in them. But let me just feel into sort of what wants to be said today. Yeah, so you hear a lot of people talking about like the bloodline of Yeshua and Mary Magdalene, and whether they had children or not, and a lot of discussions about it. And it is interesting, and it does capture our attention. And to me, I don't really question whether Sarah's real or not, because I experience her. But, of course, I can't say whether she was really their daughter. And I don't get too much into the whole like history of it, because she has so much to teach us. And for me, that's the really important thing. So I see her as a living grail, and also Mary Magdalene as well. And of course, the Grail, it is a divine feminine symbol going back, beyond recorded memory. And so much with Mary Magdalene and Sarah and the Blue Rose and the Grail. These are symbols and kind of archetypes that have existed way longer than the people and the things that we're talking about. They're ancient things that get born over and over again in a new way, in a new cosmology, in a new legend, and we get so captivated by them because we can feel they mean so much on so many different levels. So I kind of feel like Sarah's story of being the daughter of Yeshua and Mary Magdalene, it's a way to draw people in. But the bigger story is actually the archetypal energy that she holds. So, we can see Yeshua as the divine masculine, and we can see Mary Magdalene as the divine feminine. And I am very, very much a divine feminine person. I'm a priestess of the goddess, of Sophia, of the Shekinah. And that is where my soul is really, really comfortable. I've done it so many times in so many different lifetimes. And I know that part of my work, as many of us, it's to bring back that divine feminine energy. But Sarah, she holds both of them. She holds the divine masculine and the divine feminine in unity, in oneness. And that is very, very special for us at this moment in time, because we've kind of experienced a patriarchy, and we have a bit of a myth about like a matriarchy would all be perfect. But actually, we probably don't need to miss out like 50% of the human race. We need to move together in oneness now, like the masculine and the feminine. And this is our challenge, I think, at this evolutionary point in humanity's history. And Sarah is coming in to help us with that. I mean, as far as the Grail goes, I have a channeled symbol that I've worked with Sarah for many, many years. And I can't remember how long I had it, but at some point it turned into like a 3-dimensional symbol, because I've got it in 2D, obviously, because it's like a channeled symbol on a bit of paper. And it turned into this 3-dimensional symbol. And I was like, oh, that's the chalice.
I love that.
Then I started working with people using this symbol, where I would like energetically place them into it. And it becomes this really, really powerful alchemical cup. And that's the thing that I said to you, we can do a meditation for that with everyone, and then people can experience the energy. But it's interesting because the chalice is there, but there's also the energy of the blade, which isn't in all the Grail legends, but is, it pops up here and there. So it has the feminine and it has the masculine as well. And
Yeah, no, I love
really cool.
that. Is really cool, because I feel like here in the original Grail legends, we would have, you say like the blade, we have Excalibur. And so I love that, because you're right. Like, I feel like in the Arthurian legends, those are the two main symbols, the Holy Grail and the Great Sword. But it's interesting. One thing that really stood out to me that I felt very deeply while you were talking, when you said, I know you were talking about like your husband who's like the Jungian, and how when we hear, like, for example, stories of the Holy Grail, like we think of it as only a couple centuries old, because I think the first, maybe not a couple centuries, maybe a couple millennia, because I know that it was really around the time of the Crusades that like that's when we first started getting like these stories of the Holy Grail. And there are stories in the Celtic lore which kind of predate that, where there's almost like a fairy grail. And so I think that when people are listening, what draws them in, it's like, where does this come from?
Yeah.
And so I'm still thinking like, oh, it must be, started with like, the Celtic people. But then you're saying that actually, no, these are things that are so much more ancient, that like it predates, like you said, like the Celtic people. It's predating all of that. It seems like it's from eons in the past that we've had like holy objects that have existed across all different ages, that we are still able to kind of energetically feel into and experience when we hear the legend of the Holy Grail. So it seems like, from what you're sharing, like the Holy Grail, like, yes, we see certain legends in our time, even ones that are a couple thousand years old, but really it goes back so much further. That's kind of what I was feeling you say. Is that you would agree?
Yeah. I mean, that's very much my sense. And one of the things that has sort of come up for me in my spiritual journey is working with Sanskrit chants.
Ooh, yes, absolutely.
And, very, very powerful. And an amazing teacher that I found. He's passed now as well, unfortunately, because I would have loved to have met him. But he was an American, and his name was Thomas Ashley Farrand. And he has books, still chant books that are in print. And I managed to get sort of a lesser known copy of texts from his wife still sends his stuff out. And I came across this bit in there and I was just like, oh, that is so profound. And he was talking about all the stories about like Hindu gods and goddesses, of which there are many. And he says, you know, the way that the rishis understand it and have taught it is that as people, we need stories in order to understand things. Like there's all these divine principles, and you know, in Sanskrit chants, like when you get down to it, it can actually get really, really scientific in a metaphysical way, because this is what they did for thousands of years. These like Indian like gurus, they played around with sound, and then they noticed the effects that each sound, because like they're clairvoyant and what have you, has on different chakras. And that's how we know to do all these different things. So you can get really, you can teach it like a science, but they found that people didn't remember. we don't learn like that. So the stories of the gods and the goddesses, the stories are there to help us understand the divine principle that is behind those things that otherwise will be very, very scientific and factual, and we won't remember, because we're emotional beings. It's the stories that we relate to. And you know, for me, it's the same with the Grail. It's the same with Sarah, because people get very kind of, yes, but what happened to her, and who was she, and is that Sarah, and I'm like, you know, I kind of find that with the different legends and the myths, if they have life and they stay around, it's because they're telling a spiritual truth, which is actually the deeper meaning, which is actually the really interesting bit, rather than did this actually happen and was this actually true. That's the rational mind trying to sort of control everything and make things right and wrong, and you don't actually learn a lot from it, to be honest, I find.
Yeah, no, I love that. You know, I'm a storyteller myself, and I love that because I've noticed this amazing phenomenon that I can tell the same story 10 different ways. Like I'm talking to like 10 people and it just comes out differently.
Yeah.
And I realize it's because spirit is working through me, and that's the version that they need to hear, because there's some seed of wisdom. And so like I'm not the, you know, divine orchestrator. I'm just like telling the story the way it comes naturally. But I do notice that there's like this, you know, hand of the divine that's like, it's like somehow like the story itself is encoded with the wisdom, with the magic that they need in that moment. So I mean, my business is magical storytelling, and so I just, as you're attesting here, like stories are very, very magical. So I'm really glad that you brought that in. I'm curious because like I know we've talked about the Grail a little bit now. What energies and mysteries like do you see at the heart of the Holy Grail? Because like there are a lot of ways that, you know, people kind of relate to it. Sometimes people think of it as like it's like the ultimate quest. Other people are seeking it's like spiritual awakening. I'm just curious, like how do you what are the energies that you really see connected to the Grail?
So for me, it makes me think a bit like, so this is kind of, I am answering the question, but I'll start a bit off somewhere else. I have a lot of people contacting me saying they feel that they are reincarnation of Sarah, and a lot of interest in the bloodline. And there's, you know, that's another whole discussion in itself, but just for the purpose of this conversation, there do seem to be a lot of people who are incarnated, who are holding aspects of Sarah's energy, because like all of us, like we're this huge soul, we're this, you know, we're so vast, our higher selves are so vast. And, you know, it's not about just one person, it's about all of us now, like working together. And I do understand the interest in the bloodline of Yeshua and Mary Magdalene. And like personally, because people say, oh, you must be Sarah. And I'm like, no, I don't think I am, actually. I don't feel that. I've never felt that. But I do feel she overlights my energy. And I do have a very strong suspicion that I have a genetic connection because of like all the things that I can do, like working in the landscape and projecting out these energies. I kind of feel that's come down through the DNA. But, and I want to say, but one of the things that I've done in my work is I've worked a lot with runes because I live in Denmark. And when I came here, I was completely lost. I couldn't get work here. It's very hard to get work here if you're not Danish and don't speak fluent Danish. And I'm a trained nurse. I couldn't get work. So I was like, how am I going to feel like I belong somehow to this land? Because, you know, I married a Danish guy and we've got a kid and it looks like I'm living here. And so I went and trained in Nordic shamanism, which is called Seither. And the runes were just, honestly, Elizabeth, I've just never found another tool that's so amazing. They reach up so high, they connect down so deep, they're so grounded. And but they drew me to work with people's names. First of all, my own. And it's all about like grounding your soul energy and then your ancestral energies. There's so much you can learn, so many blocks you can clear. And again, it's using sound because you chant them.
Yeah,
But
no,
what I found was working with people is like I could see all the way back to their ancestral lineage, like to the beginning, because of course all of us have a beginning. We all started somewhere, right, in our ancestral line, and at the beginning of that ancestral line is this it's just pure divinity. And we all have this like divine task in our ancestral lines, and people get born into the families that their soul chooses, like, right, my sole purpose in this lifetime, I want to do this, this, and this. Okay, that ancestral line, that's going to work really well for me. So they go into that ancestral line. But people can get a bit too caught up with wanting to be in the bloodline of Yeshua, Mary Magdalene. And, you know, like with me, maybe I am, maybe I'm not. We are all coming from this incredible divinity, you know? That's at the beginning of all our ancestral lines. We all have a sacred task laid upon us. And that's coming up through us from our unconscious, you know, through our desires, through our behavior. It's always coming out in us all the time. We just have to look and listen to it. And then the other thing that I've worked with a lot is the divine spark. And this is something that exists in kind of the Hindu cosmology, that we have a divine spark called the Khrit Padma that's between our heart center and our solar plexus chakra. And it's Sarah that's taught me about this divine spark that we each have in us. And so that's something else that I've worked with, like energetically through the healing system that I teach with Sarah and stuff like that. And to me, that's the Holy Grail, that divine spark that is very, very, again, it's very real to me. That is the Holy Grail.
okay, wow. So I would love, I know that, you know, this divine spark, I know this is something that is it divine spark? Did I say that right?
Yeah.
Oh, divine spark. Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
So, I've seen stuff on your website. I know that you have courses where you take people like into deep initiation with the divine spark, but I'm wondering like if you can elaborate a little bit more because I think it's really interesting. I had another speaker who we ended up like really bringing in like Vishnu. Like it seems like the Hindu pantheon is really wanting to present itself, and I also love that you brought up Sanskrit because I know that like Aramaic, Sanskrit, it's like it is like as a vibrational language. And so I think that's really, really interesting that that's coming through, not just in your interview, but like in this summit that has come through a couple different speakers. And I would love to hear more about, you know, the divine spark. Feel free to bring in, you know, if you have more knowledge of like, you know, the Hindu pantheon or the Hindu mythology. I just love to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, so the story that kind of goes along with that divine spark is that like in the beginning, before there was creation, there's the divine. And then, you know, there's this urge to experience itself. And then we have this god called Narayana, who stays outside of creation. He's transcendent. But his divine feminine counterpart is Narayani. So Narayana, he takes a piece of himself and puts it in every single person who comes into creation. And that's their divine spark. But he stays outside sleeping.
It reminds me of like a lion. I feel like
Yeah.
male lion sleeps, female lion goes.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm a Leo, so I relate to that. And then Narayani, who is also known as Lakshmi, that's another name for her. She's the one that goes into the material world and she creates everything.
Oh.
And there's this beautiful 13th century text that I love called the Lakshmi Tantra, I think it is. And the most profound thing it says in there for me is wherever Narayani is, Narayana is. And wherever Narayana is, Narayani is. They are one and the same. And
can I ask a quick question?
yeah.
So Lakshmi, like, isn't the name that I know Lakshmi's consort as is Vishnu? Is this the same?
Yeah.
Is the same?
Yeah. Because like Hinduism, it's like such an old religion. It's said to be like the oldest religion in the world. I'm not a historian. I can't vouch.
Oh, no,
for
no.
that.
I'm just saying that if
But
it's Lakshmi's
it's been
consort,
recreated like through different centuries and texts have been rewritten. But yeah, you can kind of see, but I mean Vishnu is like the preserver, but actually Sarah does have some like overlaps with him, because the thing is with like Vishnu and Vishnu's kind of helpers is that they turn up when humanity is really in the shit, right?
yeah.
And I feel like that's what Sarah is here for, to be honest.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry I'm bringing this up. I know I'm taking us down like a rabbit hole, but I had another interview. It was a beautiful woman who was really talking about like, Hathor and Isis. And right before I did the interview with her, I felt Vishnu came in for me. And I was like, what is this? This is an
Yeah.
event on Eden, Avalon, the Holy Grail. And it was
Yeah.
like, and it was interesting because I recognized that we needed to really presence, the divine masculine, because it was really a very much like divine feminine retreat. And it was interesting because Vishnu ended up, being present in that one interview. And it seems like this energy of Vishnu, like like I said, there has been this kind of Hindu undertone to some of these Holy Grail conversations. So I'm just really curious, and it makes a lot of sense to me, like you just said, now Vishnu as the preserver, Sarah also being the preserver, that preserver energy coming in. Because I think a lot of people right now, they feel like if they're more in 3D, they feel like what's happening to our planet? Like there's no hope for tomorrow. And so it really makes sense that that preserver energy, whether it's Sarah or Vishnu, that would be coming in now really for humanity's benefit and aid. I'm wondering if you can speak to that, because I don't know, that's just really interesting to me.
Yeah. And that is something that I've come across, and I've gone online and like printed out stuff about Vishnu, because I'm like, I know there's something here. This is like really important. And again, sort of going back to Thomas Ashley Farran, the thing he says about that is that the thing is with the divine is the divine does miracles. Things can never be lost because it's the divine. And of course, we learn that from Yeshua and Mary Magdalene and Sarah as well, because, what cannot be healed by the divine mother? What cannot be recreated by God? There is nothing that can't be saved.
Oh my God, that is so beautiful. I felt that when you said that. Oh my God. Okay, so I'm loving this conversation. I actually want to I'm really wanting to go deeper into the mysteries with you now. So I just am curious, because one thing that you also spoke about was like the lineage of the blue rose, and I think that there's some connection to Avalon. Can you share more about that?
Yeah. So I mentioned before that I do like earth energy work, and like, I mean, everything that I do has kind of happened to me rather than me sort of going out and thinking, oh, I'm going to do this. And so where I've moved to in Denmark, it's a town called Roskilde, which is 20 kilometers outside of Copenhagen, the capital. And it's famous for having a domkirke, the cathedral where there's kings and queens buried here. And it was the seat of Christianity. But just up the road used to be the seat of the pagan kings. And Roskilde, it's just got sacred springs everywhere. There's just all this water coming up. It's such a powerful and holy place. And like, I can feel it goes way back before Christianity, like, you know, as is often the case with these things. Anyway, I've forgotten what you asked me now.
I was asking about the lineage of the blue rose and its
That's right. And then so there's an energy grid here, and I've worked with energy grids in like Glastonbury and Hawaii and different places. And again, over my journey, I suddenly started realizing that this was happening when I went to places. Like my energy body starts doing stuff, doesn't ask me first, it just gets involved and does stuff. And then I started to realize, like, oh, this is something I can do, and then started consciously working with it. And again, Sarah has taught me a lot about how to do that, because she's incredibly metaphysical. She's such a magical ascended master, it's untrue. But the reason I'm telling you this is because I think it was somewhere over COVID or just before COVID, there's a park across the road from where I live that's full of ponds that has spring water in it. And I went out for a walk one night, which is unusual for me. We've got a son who's 10 now, but he has special needs. And I'm usually too tired by the evening to do anything, to be honest. This night, it was like, oh, I haven't been out today. I've got to get out for a walk. And I went out and Venus was in the sky, just like totally doing the Venus thing. And I couldn't take my eyes off her. And then I was walking around this park and I was standing on some stones, because, you know, stones are an incredible way of anchoring like earth energies, spiritual energies. And I was looking up at Venus and I got totally transfixed. And, you know, I'll be honest, I am the sort of person who goes into a trance quite easily. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how long I was there, but this energy was like pouring through me from Venus, and it was incredible. And I was just like, and I, you know, and then it stopped, and then I went home. And I was like, what an amazing experience that was. I have no idea what happened. And then I found out, like, when I went back, I looked there. And it was like that energy was still there, like it had opened up an energy portal. And I was like, wow, God, you know, I don't know what that's all about. Anyway, I didn't think that much more about it. And then it was about a year or two later, because I, like you said, I do a podcast as well, basically because I like talking to people. So interesting to have these conversations, isn't it? You wouldn't have them under any other circumstance. And I was interviewing a woman called Mary Tobin, and she has a website called bluerosehealing.com. And I looked at this channeling that she'd done about the blue rose, and I recognised it was the same energy as what had come through that portal. So I now have this blue rose portal like across the road from me. I'm like, oh God.
It was interesting because I know like your hair is blue now.
Yeah.
I was guided to wear, I don't know if you can see, there's like blue on my outfit today. This is the only time I have worn blue for this entire summit. And I was just like, I'm supposed to wear this today. And I didn't even think anything of it. But so no, this blue energy is really wanting to come through. So I love that. So the blue rose is definitely tied into Venus. I know you also mentioned, I might be misremembering, but is there a connection also with Avalon?
Yeah, so the blue rose, I mean, some say it was founded by Mother Mary, other people say it's Mary Magdalene, other people say, you know, it's much older than that. And yeah, it is, you know, it goes back to Lemuria, it goes back to oh, my brain's gone. I'm thinking of Avalon. It does go back to Avalon. I can't think of the name of the other. Where's the other place that begins with A?
Atlantis.
Yeah, Atlantis. But I mean, of course, like I said, you know, really ancient, keeps getting reinvented over and over again. And it's like, it's completely cosmic. but it's also like really grounded into the ascended Gaia. And the Avalonian priestesses are said to have been part of this lineage, especially Morgan Le Fay.
Oh, I would love to hear more about that. No, I mean, no one has really presenced Morgane Le Fay actually on this summit. So if there's anything that you could share about her, I mean, I want to just also say that I found like an old book that connected, it was like Avalon to like, to Atlantis. But I didn't really know. It was a fictional book, I think by Dion Fortune. I think that's her name. I don't know if you've heard of her. She wrote a lot of like mystical books that were fiction, but it's almost like she was remembering the ancient past. And so in one of them, Merlin is like an Atlantean wizard. And so it made me really, curious personally myself about the connection between, Avalon and Atlantis. So it seems
That's really interesting. I didn't know. You have to give me that book because I want to read that. I have read books of hers. I mean, she was an amazing woman and teacher and had like her own like mystery circle, basically. Wow, that's really incredible. But I would say in a lot of ways, Sarah's energy is very similar to Morgan Le Fay. And so at the moment, I'm teaching a Blue Rose like 4-month training. I'll start it again in August. And each week, again, like I channel a different member of the lineage and they step forward and like do their stuff. And next week, it's going to be Morgan Le Fay.
my goodness.
I can feel her coming in already, but I'm sorry it wasn't earlier, then I could have told you a bit about it. But yeah, I really feel strongly like when I read The Mists of Avalon, I was 16. I loved that book. And this is long before, I was interested in anything spiritual. Morgan Le Fay, that was the person that I felt really strongly about. And then when they made a film of it, I was really annoyed because they had her down as much more sort of like, I don't know what it was, but she wasn't an empowered woman. I remember that. There was sort of too much suppression by the men. And I was like, no. That was not Morgan Le Fay. That's not her. You're not talking about the same person. You got it all wrong, because that's what I get about her. She was really feisty, really such a strong woman. Yeah.
Okay, but I love that. I mean, like I said, this is the first time that someone's really brought in Morgan Le Fay. So I'm just really excited. So especially anyone listening, you should definitely, I mean, I would love to hear like when you finally do the channeling. I mean, I would love to hear more about that.
Yeah.
But so I'm just also curious because I know that you've worked with I promise we're gonna get to Eden. We're gonna get there. But I'm just also curious. So it sounds like you've also been working, especially, you're from the UK. Like, have you worked like before with the energies of Avalon itself and Glastonbury? How you had experience there?
Yeah. So about 20 years ago, I trained as a priestess of the goddess. And in the second year of our training, we went down to Chalicewell and stayed there. And I took my initiation in Chalicewell Gardens, which was beautiful. And it's a place that I have visited extensively. And I went and lived there for about, 6 to 8 months as well, because I was in a point in my life where I'd separated from my son's father and I didn't know what the hell I was going to do. And I have found that when I go down there, Sarah's voice is unbelievably clear. And other people have written to me and said the same thing. So it's not just me. It's like, because like when I channel, like I open up and the words come through. But like when I'm sitting in Chalicewell Gardens, it's like I'm actually hearing her voice. Like she's actually sitting next to me and talking, except for there's no body there. It is a bit disturbing. And like I said, I was a psychiatric nurse, so I do get a bit worried sometimes. I'm like, oh God, I hope I'm okay. And it does make me feel better that other people experience this as well. To be honest, they have an incredibly clear connection, the Holy Family, with Avalon. And there's stories and myths about them actually having been there. And especially Yeshua and Mary Magdalene. Because there's not really any stories about Sarah so much. It has started now in the last, 10 years or so, but it is a new and emerging thing. And these things do especially come out of Avalon, out of the people who live and work in Glastonbury. But Sarah did show me a vision of her going there in her lifetime as Sarah, and training as a magical adept, and that she was amazing at it. She just like picked it up like that, just like so fast. And one of the things she did was like seed a temple there, violet flame temple. She has her own vibration of the violet flame that's lilac, and she got us all activating a temple. It's in there's an orchard on the Tor, full of apples, of course.
Of course, I know, Isle of Apples.
Yeah. And that's where her violet flame temple is. And it's sparked because Glastonbury is like the heart center of the world, and it whirs out this lilac violet flame like out to the whole of the earth grid, because you know, Sarah, she's a new earth teacher, she's a new earth mentor, ascended master. And I think that's partly why you know, I'm so eclectic. I work with the Hawaiian mythology, the Norse cosmology, the Sanskrit, the this, the that, you know, and that's totally new earth. And I did a podcast with someone who lives there, Eloise, beautiful woman. And she said that Sarah's here to unite all of the tribes. And I was just like, oh, yes. Oh, God, I just, you know, there's because she's got this oneness thing, but also it goes beyond language and ethnicity. You know, you can see Sarah as a Black woman, you can see her as a white woman, you can see her as just everything. And that's all of us, really, isn't it? Because we've all had loads of past lives, and we haven't just been like living in one country. We've been all over the place, and all of us add up to one whole humanity, basically.
Yeah, I love the way you put that, because I think that, you know, the common vernacular is like we have different races of people on our planet. And when you said like, you know, uniting all the tribes, I felt that differently, because I don't know, like I feel like there's more community there.
Yeah.
It's more community. And like I remember from all the stories like I heard growing up of, you know, learning about different tribes, it's like they would have trade, some of them would intermarry with each other. It was more about like, how do we create peaceful relations between the tribes, instead of, I feel like there's more division the way that, you know, we mostly talk about it in a modern landscape. And I feel like what you're describing, it's the truth. It's just,
Yeah. And one thing I like saying, and sometimes people take exception to this, but it just feels like really good to me, and that is, those of us that are doing this work, we're all indigenous to the new earth.
yeah. Oh, I love that. I love that.
We all belong to the new earth.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So I'm curious now, because I know that you also work with the energy of Eden.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, like, what, you know, what do you feel like? What is Eden to you?
Well, I mean, this is why it was so serendipitous that you contacted me, because when I looked at like the title of the summit, I was like, wow, I work with all of those things and I've never put them together.
I think I wrote back to you in email. I was like, I don't know why, but they needed to be woven together, all three. Originally, like my first idea was I was going to do a summit all on the Holy Grail. And then Eden was like, hello, weaving in. And the energy was so strong, I couldn't deny it. And then I was like, okay, it's Eden and the Holy Grail. And then it was like, no, there's one more energy that has to be present. And of course it was Avalon.
Yeah.
So it's funny because it was almost like a trinity. And so once those three were all present, it was like, yes, this is the event. This is what wants to come through. And when I found you, I think I said in the beginning of today's call, it was very, you know, serendipitous. It was one of those things where I feel like spirit brought me right to you. So I'm just really curious what you have to share about Eden.
Yeah. And I mean, and I've been getting information right up until like kind of the last minute before us having this call. So yeah, so when you wrote to me, I was like, wow, you know, because there's this place on the energy grid in Roskilde that I worked with for some years. So it's a developing energy grid, right? And these places like Glastonbury and Machu Picchu, you can think of them as holding like a motherboard. It's like a computer program. They have this information and they hold this certain vibration. And the one here in Roskilde, it's a developing motherboard. It's not ready yet. And so I've got other people to come and work with me, because there's certain bits of it they can't open up until you've done the healing work. And there's a lot of history here in Roskilde. I mean, there's been Vikings and, you know, whatever else, battles and things going on. And there was this one place in front of the cathedral. There's this open field with all houses around it. And you look down to the fjord. And it is like, people who are British will know what I mean. It's like Clapham Junction. Clapham Junction is one of the busiest train stations in the world, because all these different lines come into it. And there's all these interchanges. And this field is like that. There's all these ley lines coming in and all these portals. And but you look at it and there's nothing to see, right? But you look at it energetically and I'm like, wow, I can't believe this. I've never seen anything like this in my life. This is really, really strange. Anyway, so they tell me what bits I need to work on. And I do it, and I get people to help me, because you can't do this stuff on your own. You know, one person's not big enough. You need a few of you. And there was this one bit, and it was an Arcturian Stargate. And I'm like, ooh, I don't know anything about this. And they're like, it's fine. You just do what you, one step at a time. Anyway, so we worked with it. There was clearing work needed doing. And then at some point it was time. And this is like, you know, I've been here since 2014. This was like years of work of doing this. And I worked with someone and it opened and there it was. And I went, this is the Garden of Eden. And I'm like, I can't believe I'm saying that. You know, these things that come out of my mouth, they're not anything that my brain would ever come up with. Because if it was, I would choose something much more new earthy than the Garden of Eden, because that's so biblical. Yes. You know, it's not where I would go at all, but that's how it was. And it was just incredibly simple and beautiful. And so like when you contacted me, because I make vibrational essences, so I have an essence of this place. I was like, do you know what, Rachel? You've never worked with that. You made it and you put it on your shelf and it's been there ever since. So I went and got it out. And so I've been working with it over the last few days. And it's like when I spray it around, it's like, I just feel happier.
Absolutely. I love
because
that.
a lot of the energies I work with, they're really cosmic and you go, oh, and this one, it's really simple, but it's lovely. And I feel like, so, I mean, the last couple of weeks, I won't go into all the gory details, but the last couple of weeks have been really, really challenging for me. I've had a lot of things that I've needed to deal with, people that I've had to go and see, appointments that are really, really like, I don't know why these things happen all at once, but there we go. And every day I've kind of woken up and I've gone, please help me have a good day today, in spite of everything, in spite of this looking like it's going to be a really awful day. And this is horrible things that I have to do and deal with. I've asked for that. And do you know what? They have been really good days. And I've had people around me who've just been beautiful and so supportive. And then I realized today, so I went out for a walk just before we had this call, and I went to the place in the field where this Arcturian Stargate is. That's the Garden of Eden, like you do. And I was like, that's the Garden of Eden. That's the Garden of Eden energy that has come in. And that's why all those days have been okay.
Oh, I love that. I love that.
Yeah. It doesn't matter how shit things, sorry, excuse my French, how bad things get.
No, I mean, that's one of the things that I really resonate with everything you were saying, because when the Garden of Eden first came in for me, it was, I think I might have told you this, but I was teaching a class on the Holy Grail. And the week before, it was like the Garden of Eden started pouring in. It was just, I was like, what is is this?
Mm.
And it was amazing because, like you said, I wouldn't have thought of the garden because I would have, like you, thought of something more cosmic. And I was like, the garden, this is a very biblical thing. But once it comes in, you can't deny it because, like, that's just what it is. And so I love, and so I felt a very kind of similar thing to what you're describing, where there's like, for me, there's this underlying energy of just bliss and joy, where it's just like, and I think that, a lot of people, they're wondering, how do I create happiness in my life? And it seems to me that the Garden of Eden is like here, here for us right now. It's still available to bring that joy, to bring that bliss. So I'm wondering if you can talk, for members of the audience who are wanting to experience more of this Eden energy in their lives, how can they bring Eden, like into this 21st century moment? Because I feel like the world is ready.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm a metaphysician as well. And this grid that I've been working with in Roskilde, it's an ascension grid, and it holds all the different energies that we need for our ascension. Sarah works with embodied ascension. It's not about trying to get away. It's about bringing it into our bodies. And, she's Mary Magdalene's daughter. So she's going to be all about being human
Physical
and being
body.
in the body and being grounded. That's the divine feminine energy. So that portal opening up, I've seen you talking about it. I saw something else maybe 2 weeks ago, somebody talking about another, it wasn't the Pleiades, I can't remember now, but another thing, and they were saying it's the Garden of Eden, and I was like, oh wow, this is really emerging. So this is starting to come out now, and it's in the earth grid now. It's like a computer program. Like I said, it's going out. So like for me, I make vibrational essences out of it. Also, like, I realized there was a couple of Sanskrit chants that hold the vibration of the Garden of Eden that they've been on at me for a while to work with, and I haven't. Bit like the essence, just been sitting on a shelf. But I do think there's a lot about divine timing with these things. You sort of come to it when you're ready to. But this is such an essential part of our embodied ascension process, working with the Garden of Eden. It feels to me like the final part that's coming in. So it's there, it's available in the earth. So you can do it through meditation, you can do it through vibrational essences or working with chants. There's so many different ways of working with it, and it's really all about your intent, because it's here, it's on the planet.
I love that. So one thing that kind of struck me, I don't know if this is a thing that people can do, but you mentioned there are different Sanskrit, like, I don't know if they're like hymns or prayers that have that Garden of Eden, like essence and frequency. Are those things that like everyday people could read? I know that like usually I feel like there are different kind of like mantras, and like I know that like especially for things like Kundalini yoga, that there's like a whole kind of science to it. I don't know if the Sanskrit is similar, or if it's different. I don't know if you can shine some light on that.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think it. I
Oh,
don't
okay, so
think
there's
it's.
no like, I know, because sometimes like there's like training you have to do. So it seems like anyone, if they want, like they could work with like these Sanskrit, prayers or mantras. So you said that's been impactful for you.
Yeah, and also because like, so all the work that I do is kind of through the lens of Sarah. So
Mhm.
Sarah's always there somewhere. So, I might be talking about Sanskrit or whatever, but I always do it with her, like in the background, because she adds, I mean, in a way, she's a bit like having a therapist in the room. She creates a safe space. She creates a holding space. She grounds you. She also expands you upwards. So that makes doing these kind of things, like for me, much, much safer. So, because I mean, there are certain practices that I wouldn't give out to people unless they're actually doing a training with me, for example, because like, I mean, I have a system of healing, a bit like Reiki, where you get initiated, but it's healing with Sarah and the angels. And I do teach practices of working with the Khrit Padma, the divine spark. And that's part of the training that the healers get. I wouldn't just give those out to anybody, because you do need, it needs to be done in a safe way and in a controlled way, because you can end up, because around the Creep Padma, you've got a lot of everything within you that's not of the divine is sitting around your divine spark, and you need to work to clear that. And obviously, if you went at it kind of gung-ho, you could really end up in literally a lot of shit.
I understand.
But
No,
with other things, they are easier. But yeah, but I was going to make that part of my offer.
oh yes, yeah, we're definitely going to go
Yeah.
into I definitely want to talk more about that. I know that I think we're almost at our hour, but I'm just wondering, another thing that I've been kind of really sitting with, is this energy of Eden consciousness. I'm wondering if I know, because you've worked with kind of Eden, you said through the flower essences, through Sanskrit. Do you really feel there is an emergence of, what I'm calling Eden consciousness on the planet? Some call it the Christ Sophia consciousness, but for me, it's really come through as Eden consciousness.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. We've all got different ways of understanding these things. And I see it as a blueprint, it's it is this set of instructions that then creates this vibration of consciousness. And yeah, I mean, I think this is a part, the Eden consciousness, it's a part of those other things that hasn't come in for us yet. And really, actually, just so I live in an apartment, and out the front of where I live, they have just taken up all of that, is it asphalt?
Oh yes.
And laid down this new layer. And I was and that's today. And I'm fancy that. And here I am talking about the Garden of Eden, because these things actually come down and get put down into the new earth grid. We actually download them through different people and working with different light beings, and that they actually get woven into all the ley lines and everything. And that's what I'm saying, it's actually on the planet now, so it means it's much more accessible for people to reach.
I love that, because I really appreciate what you just said a few minutes ago about how I'm hosting this event. Then there's another post that you read a couple weeks ago, again with the Eden energy. And I was guided when this event was supposed to be. But it's interesting because I really feel, for me, this was brewing for almost 8 or 9 months before it actually happened. And it's kind of crazy because I was trying to actually do it earlier. I'm not kidding. It's in the universe, which is no. And now I really feel what you're describing, it's almost this is the moment that the earth grid, that is finally ready to be received and installed, so that humanity can interact with it again. So I think that's so funny for me, at least, there was that piece of human will that was I want to do this sooner, but it really just seems this is the moment of emergence and reclamation of these great, beautiful energies. And I really just love what you said earlier, that you said, the last couple of weeks, had been more challenging for you. And you're talking to Sarah and basically the universe, please let this be a good day. And because you were working with the Garden of Eden, how could it not be a good day? I mean, I love that. And so, no, that is kind of just sharing with you, kind of one of my big intentions, with this event is, I felt this too, since I've been really in the Eden energies, I felt my entire life changed. Yeah. I was kind of still addicted to that old model of growth through suffering, awakening through suffering. And once I shifted into Eden energy, I was oh my God, I've arrived. And it was a totally different paradigm. And that's part of why I was so passionate about bringing it to people, because I feel we've all gone on that hamster wheel, that karmic hamster wheel, for so long. And I know that there is divine purpose, and people have different journeys that they have to undergo, different initiations. But for me, what I was really receiving as I was preparing for this event was that this was a happy beginning. And for me, I really felt that's part of why the Eden energy, why the garden had come in, for us to claim it. And so, just curious your thoughts on that, because for me, it was very clear that there was a new way of being, a new way of living, a new way of experiencing life on our planet. So I would love if you could expand upon your thoughts on this, because I know that part of your work with Sarah is to bring on the new earth.
Yeah, absolutely. And the massive thing with Sarah, so she has 3 aspects. So she has a flame. It's the threefold flame. And there's three aspects to it, and there's different ways of understanding it. But when we do the energy work, she has this lilac violet flame, and then there's this white flame of divinity, which is also her vibration of her host of angels. And then there's this green flame, which is this energy of nature that manifests and weaves things down into reality. But to be honest, the most of the work has been with the violet flame, because there's so much clearing that has to be done. And, you know, there is still more. But then, so yeah, so like the last 2 weeks, it has been a bit of a crash course for me, I think, in the Garden of Eden energy. And it was like they took really 2 bad weeks of my life that should have been, you know, really just horrible, and actually showed me like how I can use my intent and this, you know, energy of the Garden of Eden to, so those days there were still difficult things happening to me, but they were beautiful days anyway. And but it was all there, it was very integrated. So I'm not trying to sort of like not be upset, or but then this beautiful thing, love, comes along that's really healing. And you know what I mean? It's kind of that way of looking at it. So it's not suddenly just all bliss and everything, but it's the human experience with the divine. And yeah, I just thought, wow, so now we're getting to the part that I've been waiting for, because so far it's just been clearing, work, seeding, clearing, and I've not seen like the results, although I know they're kind of coming in the future. And now it's like, yeah, now it's, so that, I mean, that earth grid work I did with that Garden of Eden, that was definitely at least a year ago. Could even be the year before, because I do get a bit foggy on time. But it's just been sitting there waiting, like seeping into everybody. It takes a while for things to come through the energy layers before we're ready to actually kind of get it with our minds. It's sort of the last thing to sort of really like filter through to. So yeah, it's been an amazing process, and I'm really glad you invited me on here. I do feel like it was all part of it. They were like, right, it's time for her to sort this out, get it in her head. Let's, you know, put these people together, and then it all just happened.
Yeah, no, I love that. I also just love what you said though about how, like, when you were working with the Garden of Eden energy, it's not like you had these days of rainbows and bliss. Because I think when you're talking about Mary Magdalene and Sarah as really being like about like active embodiments of divinity, I feel like that's the whole thing. So it's not supposed to just be like, oh, okay, you worked with the essence of the Garden of Eden and now you just kind of went off skipping into the sunset. It was that it was integrated, it was embodied. And I don't know, I just feel like that is the great gift of being here. And I know, I feel like it's such a gift to be in these bodies. And so it's a gift to be in these bodies, especially with that kind of Garden of Eden energy, not have, like you said, like, I really do feel like we've been kind of waiting for this moment. And it really feels like this is it. It's finally happening. And so that's also why I'm so grateful to you for being here. And, you know, I know I literally have, I think I've said this like 3 different times in our interview, but this was for me, like there were so many different synchronicities that had to happen for us to be here having this conversation. So I just know that it was really important. I don't know like the ripple effect. I don't know what it's going to awaken in the audience, but I know that it was profound. And so I want to share, I know you have a beautiful free gift and an incredible offer for us today, but first I just want to see if you have any, you know, closing thoughts, anything else that, you know, you feel called to share with the audience today.
Can I channel something from Sarah? Because I'm sure she'd like to say something.
Oh,
She
yes.
usually does. I'll just go quiet for a moment, and then when I start talking again, I'll be bringing Sarah through. And it's not just the words, it's the energy that she sends out to people, and people can get their own like little messages and all sorts. So just be open, see what happens. Blessings, blessings. Welcome, welcome. I am Sarah. You have seen today in your conversation about Eden, Avalon, myself, the blue rose, that these things are not separate at all, but have a common thread running through them. And that thread is love. As you have said, it is something that people talk about very easily without having the connected experience in their bodies of emotion and understanding of what that really means. But still, it is somewhere to start, to talk about it, to say it. Because the mind sets an intention. It has a power that the body and the soul can follow into. It is such a beautiful energy that you are coming into now, the Garden of Eden. And it is being represented to you through the stories that many of you have heard since you were children. And yet you instinctively know that the Garden of Eden is an energy of purity, of beauty, untouched by evil or darkness, and can be stepped into in a most beautiful way. And yet it feels so safe, unthreatening. And instinctively, again, you know it belongs to you. You know this is your home, the Garden of Eden. That's where you belong. And so you don't need to long to go home, as some people do by not being on earth anymore. You can have that here. You can have your home here on the earth. The ascended Gaia is your mother. She wants to provide for you. She wants to nurture you. And the Garden of Eden is part of her consciousness, her highest gift that she has to give to you and to share with you. It is the time now, and she, the ascended Gaia, is so happy that now humanity in its own consciousness has come to the point where it can be ready to open up to this gift, because you cannot give a gift to anyone who isn't ready to receive it. And now more and more of you are coming to that point now of being ready to receive. And the ascended Gaia is so happy. Words cannot describe that feeling. I am Sarah, and my blessings are upon you each and every moment and every day of your lives. Blessed be, blessed be, blessed be. Amen.
Oh my God, that was so beautiful. Thank you for bringing that through. Oh my God. I'm so very touched. So you when you channel, like you still remember everything that was said.
It can be a little bit fuzzy.
Okay, that's
So
why I was like,
yeah,
should I engage you about it? And I was like, okay, maybe you don't remember everything. But one thing that I really loved that Sarah said is that actually Eden is part of, like, the ascended, like the ascended Mother Earth, like the highest gift that she has to give us. And I love that. And I just love that, that beautiful thing she said: you can't give a gift to someone who's not ready to receive it. And I felt that in my life. Like sometimes, like when you're like, I have felt that the truth of that. And so it's sometimes like I feel like we feel that like God hasn't provided for us, but really it's that it's not the moment yet to receive the gift.
yeah, it's like with if you've got kids, you can't give them that bike until they're big enough to get on the bike and
Yes.
old enough to know about traffic and things like that. So it's not about punishment. I know, I didn't know that. I was, so like I'll have to listen back to sort of fully understand it, because she was saying things that I don't know anything about. So I was like, oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
That was wonderful. I loved, I mean, there was also something she said that, these three energies, Avalon, Eden, the Holy Grail, they are all one and the same. So like I was like, she's like you have, discovered today in your conversation, it's like they seem like three different threads, but they really are all one and the same, united by divine love. And like I just was like, oh my God, because that's for me, I don't know if I said this in our call, but divine love, really, like that has also been my great intention for this event. It really is to bring people back to that ultimate reality, divine love, really as I feel like the underlying foundation of our universe, that which is behind everything.
Mhm.
And so I knew that was like tied into the Garden of Eden, and I didn't quite know how, but of course, like there it is right there. So I'm so grateful to you for for channeling Sarah, for bringing her through. And I just really feel like Sarah was the one that was like orchestrating. Like I feel like she was the one behind the scenes making all of this magic happen. So you and I got to connect and have this conversation.
Yeah, for sure.
But now that we have really gotten, everyone in the audience really got like a direct experience of Sarah, I also know that you have a beautiful free gift for our audience today. Can you share more about that? Let me see. Do I have the name? It's a Journey to Sarah's Ashram. Can you tell us?
Yeah. So Sarah has an ashram. I was quite surprised when she told me where it was. It's above the big island of Hawaii. And but when she did, it kind of makes sense, because there's this incredible earth energy that's just so pure that comes out of that area where like the volcano energy is coming out, and it's just so creative and so new earth. And traveling to her ashram is really, really beautiful, because we are still kind of a bit split on the material plane away from the whole of our divinity. It's getting closer, but we're not quite there yet. And when we go to her ashram, it's like we can get the whole of it. We can get that whole felt experience of our own divinity. And then we bring it back down onto the earth. And it's a place where once you've connected with it, like you can ask to go and like sleep there at night, or it's a bit of a refuge, like please like take me up there tonight and teach me anything I need to know, or give me any healing, or that kind of thing. It's lovely.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I also think it's cool because you said that your first time channeling Sarah, I think, were you in Hawaii? I think you said that she just came through. So,
I was teaching about Hawaii. Yeah, I was back
oh,
in
you teach
Surrey,
about
but
Hawaii.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah,
But that's why it's kind of amazing. You're like, oh, because of course she's deeply connected to that energy of Hawaii. I would never have thought that. Never have thought that. Um,
mm.
but I want to, I know you have a beautiful offer for us. But I had oh no, okay, I'm gonna go and do the offer. I had a thought about Sarah. There's like a question and then it just popped off. So I think it will come back after we introduce your wonderful offer. So I believe the offer that you have for everyone today is called Coming into Sarah's Embrace.
Yeah, yeah.
Can
So
you tell
that's a
what
yeah,
can people experience in Sarah's Embrace?
yeah. So it's a 4-part video series, because there's so much to learn about Sarah. So there is a new mythology that's emerging about her, and stories. And so I talk about some of those stories. And then at the same time, I give equal time to deep meditations and activations and healing sessions where you're actually experiencing these things that she's come to do with us, because she's so much more than a story. She has come here at this time as an ascended master for the new earth, to specifically help us step into our mastery. And I think if people are called to her, they know, they feel it, they just get emotional and don't really know why. And then so there's the video series, and then just for this summit I wanted to offer something a bit special. And because I've just discovered this Eden essence, vibrational essences, I don't sell them so much on my website, but anybody who buys that course, if you let me know you've bought it, I will send you a stock bottle of that Eden vibrational essence. And I will also send you the Sanskrit chant. So when I teach people Sanskrit chants, I record myself singing it because it's much easier to sing along to somebody else. And then, you know, once you get confident, then you don't have to anymore. But actually, it's quite nice to do it anyway, because then you don't have to you don't have to think so much. So yes, that's my bonus offer with it as well.
Oh my God, that's amazing. I'm gonna sign up for this myself. Oh my God. Especially the vibrational essence. I also am someone I love mantras. I love chanting. I'm one of those people. So no, that just sounds so heavenly. Really. That was the word that just popped off the tip of my tongue. And I do finally remember the question that came through. It was on your website, you said something like, Sarah can change your life.
Oh, completely.
And I'm just wondering if you could elaborate on that, whether it's for yourself or just in general, like in what ways can people expect their lives to be changed by working with Sarah?
So where we are in our time in humanity, there is a lot of old stuff. Yeah. Sarah holds the blueprint of the new earth and the new humanity. It was passed to her through her parents, but she didn't get to express it in that lifetime because it wasn't the time. And she's come back now to really empower us. She is sister, teacher, mentor, guide. She won't tell you what to do, but she'll tell you like why perhaps you're not doing things and get you to deal with your stuff. She just, yeah, she if you want to be activated, if you want a catalyst, if you want to really move forward on your like ascension journey or, you know, spiritual journey, whatever kind of language you use, she's the woman for you, basically.
I love that. Okay, so I think that's it for today. Oh my God, has been such a pleasure. I can't believe it's over. It's like because there was so much built. Oh, I do want to just say it's just so interesting. I have one last little bit of synchronicity for the audience. So when I recorded, like the first interview I recorded for this summit was like 2 days before Easter. So it was really interesting that it was that, and I didn't record another interview for a couple months, but it feels very potent and significant that like this last one today is, you said like daughter of, Mary Magdalene and Jesus Christ. Like I don't know, like for me, I have also really felt the presence of, of Christ really throughout this whole summit. I've had different speakers really bring in his energy. And so I wanted to presence that because that's something that I have not yet said or, explored really in this summit, but I do feel like it's significant. So that's just something I wanted to say and wanted to ask if there is just any thoughts that you have on that overlighting presence of Christ and his love.
I mean, for me, I can't think of Yeshua without Mary Magdalene. You know, they're a bit like Narayani and Narayana. Wherever one is, the other one is also. Even if you only see one, the other one is still energetically like with them. And I think the love story of Mary Magdalene and Yeshua, many of us feel that very, very instinctively because they're role models for us. And so Sarah, they're like, we're all divine, but they've been here and held that blueprint. And so by connecting with them, it gives grace to our journey. It gives ease to our journey, because once somebody's done something on the earth and you connect with that, you get it much faster. So yeah, they are really a beautiful act of grace for us, I think, the Holy Family. And it's nothing to do with Christianity. It doesn't matter whether you're Christian or not. They weren't Christians.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that so much. Oh my goodness. Okay. Well, I think that's a really funny and beautiful note to end on. So, Rachel, thank you so much for being here. It has been a true joy and a pleasure.
You're welcome. It's been lovely talking to you and meeting you today, Elizabeth. I've had great fun.